What's up, Beastcoast Pokemon? Today, myself, Luke, and my friend Sean here are going to be showing James 12 Pokemon TCG cards. Now, James is a video game competitor. He's amazing at the video game. James just had the Pokemon TCG rules explained to him a few moments ago, so he is not very well versed in the Pokemon TCG. We're going to challenge him and see if he can guess how good these Pokemon cards were in their respective standard formats.
Yep, we chose 12 cards, and we're going to be having them on a rating system of 1 to 5. 1 is its utter bulk, do not put it in your deck, up to 5, which is if you do not have this card in your deck, you're actively making a bad deck.
I hope we get some wacky answers from James. So we are starting with Professor Oak, and as a bonus for the first one, we have Professor Oak and Professor Oak's Research. Which is the spiritual reprint of it. So Professor Oak, the original one from base set printed in 1996 in Japan, reads discard your hand and then draw 7 cards. And the newer one, which has the supporter tag on it that says you can only play 1 supporter card a turn, does the same exact thing. Discard your hand and draw 7 cards. So you can rate these separately, James, but we just wanted to show you that since it is a new card that's playable today, and it was also a card that was playable 25 years ago.
All right. So do I get my ranking here?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What would you rank Professor Oak from a 1 to 5?
I feel like I've definitely seen this card before, but I can't tell if it was from card drawings or from like actual competitive. I barely watched competitive other than maybe like as a nationals like before the VGC final start. I feel like this is probably a 5 or 4. I don't remember if this got banned or not, because I know in like Yu-Gi-Oh, like discarding and getting like 7 cards would be pretty insane. So say this card would probably be really strong, so I'd probably give it a 5 or 4.
James is clocking in at a 5 on this. And how about this one? You can only play 1 supporter card a turn, but it's the same exact effect. Discard your hand and draw 7.
I don't know what the other support effects are, so I'll probably give it a 4.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right, so that was all wrapped up into a bow to be number 1, and we're going to move on to number 2, being Arceus and Dialga and Palkia GX Tag Team. So this is 3 legendary god Pokemon all on the same card. It's a basic Pokemon, which means it doesn't have to evolve. It's being played right down onto the board. It has 280 hit points, and it's Dragon type. So tag team Pokemon reward 3 prize cards if it's knocked out. So that means your opponent would take half of the prize cards they need to win the game just for knocking this one Pokemon out. It has 2 attacks. The first one, Ultimate Ray, for a water energy, a metal energy, and a colorless, does 150 damage. Search your deck for 3 energies and attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. And it has a GX attack. GX attacks can only be used once a game. You have a GX marker. It's kind of like your Z move. In the VGC, you can only use 1 of them per game. So Alter Creation, for the rest of the game, your attacks do 30 more damage. And if you also had an extra water energy attached, so that means it would cost metal and water, whenever your opponent's active is knocked out by damage from your attack, you take an extra prize card. Any questions, James? I threw a lot at you.
I don't know anything about tag teams, and I've never even heard of this card. I've never seen anything about this card before, so I'm not sure. There's like a few TCG players I probably follow on Twitter, so usually if there's a broken card, they'll probably say something about it. I've never seen them talk about Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia, I feel like, so I feel like this card's probably not played much, so I'd probably give it a 1.
All right. So clocking in at a 1 at Arceus and Dialga and Palkia, Archealgia Tag Team GX at a 1 from James.
Archealga, is that what you just called it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, well, I can take the next 2 if you don't mind. So this one is Tyranitar EX. It was printed back in the Generation 3 era. EX Pokemon have a rule that when it's knocked out, you take 2 prize. Your opponent takes 2 prize cards when they knock yours out. And it has 3 attacks here. Electro Mark for lightning and colorless. Colorless energy, by the way, in case you didn't know, can be any type of energy attached. Can count as that, which puts a shockwave marker on your opponent's Pokemon. Hyper Claws does 70 plus 70 or 20 more damage to a Stage 2 evolved Pokemon, which is the highest stage that any Pokemon can really evolve into. And then Shockwave, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon that has any Shockwave markers on it. That Pokemon is knocked out.
So pretty much Electromark puts a marker on a Pokemon, and then if you attach one more energy next turn, you can just knock that Pokemon out.
Yeah, that's the basic strategy of it.
I don't know anything about old Pokemon. I maybe know something about Gen 4 beyond, but again, I've never even heard of that discard. At least the effects probably look decent. Electromark and a Shockwave looks probably cool. I don't know how energies exactly work and like how hard it would be to set it up. So I feel like it's probably not the worst, but I feel like it's hard to set up potentially. I don't know. I'd probably give this like a 2.
Okie doke. Tyranitar EX clocking in at a 2 from James.
All right, so the fourth card, technically fifth, that we have on the list is Cleffa. So the only attack it has is Eek. I'm not pronouncing that many E's. Shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 7 for 1 energy. And back in Generation 2, there was a baby Pokemon clause. If your baby Pokemon is in the active spot and your opponent tries to attack, you flip a coin. If tails, the opponent's turn ends without any attack happening. And this card has no weakness, no resistance, and no retreat cost.
I don't know what any of those are, but I mean, the effect just seems broken itself. I feel like with the baby clause,
It can't be attacked, or your opponent has to flip a coin to attack.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be 4 or 5. I want to lock it in at 4 probably, but I don't know the rules on this. But like, yeah, I'd probably lock this at least 4 at the minimum. I want to say.
Okay, so 4, locking it at 4.
Okay, next we've got Joltik. Joltik from the Phantom Forces expansion is a basic Pokemon with 30 hit points, lightning type. It has 2 attacks. Gnaw for a lightning energy does 10 damage, and Night March for colorless does 20 times the number of Pokemon in your discard pile that have the Night March attack. Now, just to give you some context, Sean and I had discussed it probably would be fair to give context that in this standard format, there were exactly 3 Pokemon that had the Night March attack, including Joltik itself.
And how many basic Pokemon can you have or like the same type? Let's say, how many Joltiks can I have
4
in
copies.
a deck?
4 copies.
4 copies in a deck.
Okay, that sounds probably pretty insane. I would probably give this... I'd rate a low 4, I feel like. So I'd probably lock it in at 4 if it can like really stack. Yeah, I'd probably give it a 4 if it can really stack.
Sounds good. Next, we've got Rayquaza VMAX from a pretty recent set, Evolving Skies. An absolute banger of a set, actually, whether you're a collector, a player, just like looking at cool cards. Rayquaza VMAX evolves from Rayquaza V. So Rayquaza V itself is worth 2 prizes when knocked out, and then Rayquaza VMAX is even bigger and stronger and worth more prizes. 320 HP, so pretty hefty. The ability Azure Pulse, once during your turn, you can discard your hand and draw 3 cards. Notably, if you have multiple Rayquazas in play, that ability stacks. You can use all of them. And then it has 1 attack, Max Burst, Fire Lightning, to do 20 damage plus. You can discard any number of basic fire energies or basic lightning energies from this Pokemon, and it does 80 more for each energy you discarded.
Is Rayquaza like a basic technically? Can you just play
Rayquaza V you can play directly down, and then you have to wait 1 turn to evolve it into the V Max.
Seems crazy. Little energies, Azure Pulse looks pretty cool. How many Rayquazas can you technically have in a deck?
4 of the V and 4 of the V Max. Also,
yeah,
it has no weakness.
Yeah, any card that isn't a basic energy card, you can have up to 4 copies in your deck.
And weakness works the same way on TCG at the moment as it does in VGC. They take double damage. So Rayquaza doesn't have any weakness, and resistance would nerf the damage incoming, and it also has no resistance.
I feel like I've heard Rayquaza talked about a lot. I just don't know if it's this version or if there are several other Rayquaza variants in TCG. I want to kind of say this one's probably talked about quite a bit because it's something I can actually recognize. I think I've seen this before. I'm going to lock in at 5.
All right, Rayquaza VMAX getting a 5.
All right, so yeah, next we have Pidgeot, which is a Stage 2 colorless type Pokemon with a Poke Power. These were the precursors to abilities along with Poke Bodies. Once during your turn before you attack, you may choose any one card from your deck and put it into your hand. You can't use more than one quick search Poke Power this turn, which is it's a difference between a soft and a hard once per turn on that Rayquaza card that you just saw before. Because it says once during your turn, it only means on that copy. Whereas if you had multiple Pidgeots in play, you couldn't use more than one quick search. And then for it has an attack for double colorless clutch 40. The defending Pokemon can't retreat until the end of your opponent's next turn. But it has no retreat cost. Resistance at this time was minus 30, so it takes 30 less damage from fighting types, and weakness was double damage, so you take 2 times the damage from a lightning type Pokemon.
Yeah, TCG typing's always confused me because I don't know. All right, so because fighting's technically effective against normal, not flying, and it's weak to electric, which, you know, is just confusing knowledge. But I don't know, quick search seems really good. I just don't know like what was probably meta back then, so I have no idea like what it could really like be used for. I don't know what kind of synergy Pidgeot deck would have. I've never even seen this card before. I think it's a crazy effect. I just don't know what it combos into. So I think without that knowledge, I can't really say much about it. So I think I'm just going to go with a safe 3. It doesn't seem like the worst card, but I have no idea what it combos with specifically. So what do you use quick search for?
That's super fair.
Okay. All right, so the next Pokemon we have here is Raichu level X. So level X Pokemon were in the Diamond and Pearl era of the game, and you can put this Pokemon down on an active Raichu, or any level X can be put down on their own original Pokemon. And it can use any attack, Poke Power, or Poke Body from its previous level or the previous stage of evolution, essentially. So this has a Poke Body that lets you, once during your turn, when you put level X onto Raichu and use Voltage Shoot, you may choose another attack of Raichu afterwards, meaning you can attack twice with this card. This power can't be used if Raichu is affected by a special condition. Stuff like Poison, Sleep, Confusion, and Burn are all in the trading card game. And then Voltage Shoot for 2 Lightning Energy and a colorless. Discard 2 Lightning Energy cards from your hand. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, and it does 80 damage to that Pokemon. So that includes bench Pokemon as well. Don't apply weakness and resistance for bench Pokemon. And this card has no retreat cost, 20 resistance to metal types, and a 2 times fighting weakness.
Wait, once during your turn, you can put Raichu level X onto Raichu and use Voltage
So basically,
Shoot.
the wording is kind of weird, but what it means is on the turn you evolve from Raichu to Raichu level X, you get an extra attack that turn as long as you use Voltage Shoot.
Yep.
And this
So-
isn't. And this
so
isn't
think
like.
Mega Kangaskhan type deal, but only on the first turn you evolve it.
And you can't de-evolve, right, from X to like regular Raichu and then do it again.
I don't think Devolution Spray was legal at this point.
Super
No.
Scoop Up was, which was on a coin flip. You would have to pick up the whole card and start over again with the evolutions.
Yeah, so you'd have to put down Pikachu, then evolve it to Raichu next turn, and then
you'd have
go
to get a
another
coin
turn.
flip.
Yeah, so
I've never even heard of this card. I didn't even know what X was, and if I knew anything about TCG and if I owned cards, I feel like it would be from the Diamond Pearl era. So I'm actually very confused. The effects, I don't know how crazy this is because I don't know anything about TCG, but I don't know. This doesn't seem too crazy to me at the moment, but I had like no idea like what kind of cards existed back then. I feel like effects are definitely weaker than they were like from the other cards you showed me. So I kind of want to give this a 1 because I'm trying to figure out like I'm not sure how good Voltage Shoot is, and I have no idea what the HPs were generally, so I didn't know because like you see crazy Pokemon like you showed me earlier with the VMAX stuff having like 300. I have like no clue what like the effects don't seem too crazy, and I feel like the HP numbers were probably still like around high hundreds. So yeah, I don't know anything about this. I give it a 1.
okay.
Cool.
Yeah, to give you a little bit more context just before that, the highest HP at this point was Wailord EX with 200, and by that point it was rotated. So 80 damage was considered a lot back when this was printed. So if that changes your answer, I don't know.
I'd say 80 was probably like mid to high. It wasn't like an insane number, but it was pretty good.
Maybe then I'd give it a 2, bump it up, but
Okay.
it doesn't seem too crazy still to me.
Next, we've got Lysander's Trump card, which is a supporter card. As we told you earlier, you can only play one supporter a turn. This effect is each player shuffles all cards from their discard pile into their deck, except for any Lysander's Trump cards.
I feel like I remember someone talking about, I remember like the Gen 6 era. I think people were complaining about Lysander, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure I saw like, there was always like some argument about Lysander. I think it was used in TCG. I think I heard it on like a Nata World stream. I feel like this is definitely one of the crazier cards. I want to say it's probably a 4 or 5. I'm just not sure because I think I've heard a lot of complaints about this card, but I'm not 100% sure because again, no TCG knowledge. So I want to say I'd give it a 5. It's from how much I've heard about it being talked about.
5 for the Trump card.
All right, let's lock it in.
Going on to Claydol from Great Encounters in the Diamond and Pearl era, roughly the same time as that Raichu level X we were looking at. It has the Poke Power Cosmic Power. Once during your turn, you may choose up to 2 cards from your hand and put them on the bottom of your deck, and then draw until you have 6 cards in hand. It has Spinning Attack that does 40 damage, 80 HP, weak plus 20 to grass.
I mean, the attack doesn't sound that great, but the cosmic power seems pretty solid. I think it would be very situational, though. It depends, I think, for the most part. How many cards do you start off with in a hand again?
So you start off with 7, and then you can play down... You have to play down 1 basic Pokemon from your hand to start the game.
Yeah.
So 6, and then
so
you draw a card per turn.
Wait, do you reshuffle the hand until you get a basic, or is it like you just keep drawing a card?
If you whiff a basic, you have to reshuffle and draw.
Okay. I mean,
and this isn't on Evolve. This is like once a turn if you can use it.
I mean, 6 cards doesn't sound that. 6 cards sounds really good in like mid-late game situations, or maybe like if you set up really early, for instance. So tough to call, but I've never heard this card before, so maybe I'd give it a special condition like sleep paralysis poison or something.
Exactly.
Like, okay.
Yeah, special conditions, sleep paralysis, poison, confused, burn, and only Pokemon in the active position can be affected by a special condition. So if it's sitting on your bench, which you can have 5 Pokemon on the bench and they can't do anything but sit there and evolve and stuff, you're attacking Pokemon's in the active, so only that active Pokemon can be affected by special condition.
But yeah, Poke Powers and Poke Bodies are still able to be used from the bench.
On the bench.
So,
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like the card, like the cosmic power effect, seems pretty solid. I feel like it's situational though, and I have like no idea what even was this kind of like synergy wise, because again, I don't know any other cards in this deck. I feel like it probably is a lower effect because of the fact it's situational. It seems like a really good card, but the thing is, it just sounds like it really depends on like what do you have to set up. And again, I don't know anything about what you set up in this gen. I'd probably give it a 2.
Okay. And on to our second to last card.
All right, so this is Mega Charizard EX. So it evolves from Charizard EX. All EX Pokemon during this era were basic Pokemon, so you could just put a Charizard down on your bench and then evolve in the next turn into the Mega form. Now, Megas had a rule where if you Mega evolved one of your Pokemon, your turn ended. However, there were cards later printed called Spirit Links, which were Pokemon tools that you could attach to make sure that that turn did not end. So this card has 230 HP, and for double fire, 1 darkness, and double colorless, Wild Blaze does 300 damage and discards the top 5 cards from your deck. And Mega EXs only still gave 2 prizes, so.
I have no clue. I mean, Wild Blaze seems insane. 300 damage. I just don't know like how often you could even set this up. I feel like Charizard, the thing is about Charizard, whether it's collecting or if it's competitive, it's a mon that's talked about. I have no idea like which Charizard's which, so I have like no idea is this a crazy card or not. It does require a lot of energies, it looks like. 300 damage does look pretty insane. I just feel like it'd probably be really hard to set up, and the discard top five card seems pretty rough. So I can't really give an opinion about this. I think I'm gonna go 3 just to be safe, because I feel like this could either be a really good card or a really bad card, and I just can't tell. Like, I don't think there's a factor that I know of that can like swing it.
Makes sense.
Yep. The last card on our lineup is Slowking. This was printed in, I think, what was it, Neo Genesis? One of the Neo Gen 2
Yeah,
sets.
it's Genesis.
So
this,
it's a
like gold and silver era, like
Yep.
really old card.
Yep, Neo era was gold and silver. So it's a stage 1 80 HP psychic type with the Pokemon power that was even older than Poke Power and Poke Body. Mind games. So whenever your opponent plays a trainer card, flip a coin. If heads, that card does nothing. Put it on top of your opponent's deck. It can't be used if it's asleep, confused, or paralyzed. So even if it was poisoned or burned, not all special conditions inhibited this power. And for 3 energies, 3 psychic energies, you could use Mind Blast. Flip a coin. If heads, this attack does 20 damage plus 10 more damage, and the defending Pokemon is now confused. If tails, it just does the base 20. And then it's weak to psychic as well, resists nothing, and has a retreat cost of 3 energy.
Okay, so I know absolutely nothing about old card series other than people collecting them. Thanks Logan Paul for, I guess, that, and making cards super expensive, I guess. But what is this mind game? Statuses I feel like are pretty insane. I know we rolled the dice a lot in VGC. It's not exactly the most consistent thing. I guess you got like a lot of coin flips in TCG you got to deal with as well. I'm usually a person who like values a lot more consistency than anything. The attack, I have no idea what the base HPs were back then. That's the thing. I have like no idea what the highest HPs were.
I'll help you out and say Slowking was in the average to above average HP range himself.
Yeah, I'd imagine like the highs are probably like 110, 120 back in the day, maybe 130 at the highest. But I don't know. I feel like consistency wise, this isn't amazing. I mean, statuses are incredible if you get them off, and I guess if you're lucky, yeah. But otherwise, it just seems pretty mediocre if it doesn't.
He doesn't. Slowking doesn't apply statuses himself.
Oh wait,
it just says it can't be used like the other ones did. This power can't be used if Slowking's asleep, confused, or paralyzed. It just, yeah, that's all that. That's just a little clause at the bottom. So his power actually does, when your opponent plays a trainer, you flip a coin, and if heads, that card did nothing.
Yeah, so a trainer card, like we showed you at the beginning, Professor Oak, like if they activated Professor Oak, you would flip a coin, and if heads, that Oak would do nothing, and it would just go to the top of their top of the deck.
Oh, top of your opponent's deck, yeah.
I guess supports are technically really good. This is kind of tough because I guess that gives you like a pretty huge advantage if you are able to set it up.
Also, because there is you can only use this power once. If you get multiple on the board, it applies more than once, so you flip more than one coin.
I mean, it's still 50-50. I'm not sure like how common are the coin flip situations in general in TCG. Like,
it really depends on how you build your deck. Like if you want coin flip situations, I'd say, at least in the current game, there are some decks that will play a play set of 4 cards to coin flip. There are some that won't play any. It's kind of like, do you want that added variance, like the highs and lows, or do you want to go down the middle?
Yeah, like the main card we have right now that is a coin flip is Crushing Hammer, which if you flip a heads, it discards an energy off of one of your opponent's Pokemon, which is such a tempo card, so that's why that's played. But so I mean, for the math on this, like if you had 2 Slowkings on your board, you'd flip 2 coins and have a 75% chance of hitting that heads and preventing that trainer card from going off. Goes up to 87.5 with 3. You get the gist.
I don't know, because I usually try to play games as consistent as possible. The mind game seems, or like the chance just seems really good, but like I always usually just assume you're not going to get it most of the time. So
I see you've missed so many focus blasts in your life that you do not like this card.
Have you ever seen me use Focus Blast before? There's a reason why I don't use Focus Blast, Sleep Powder, or any of those.
Makes sense.
I I don't know. I feel like this is probably a dumb move. I also probably haven't ranked any card 1, have I?
You've
I
ranked
think-
one card 1.
Yeah, you've ranked
What?
1.
I don't know. Again, I'm more of a man who like tries to find the most consistent ways. Yes, this technically gives you an advantage, I guess, because if you are able to get like the coin flip right, you know, you are in a huge advantage. But otherwise, if you don't get it, feels like it's pretty strange. I guess I'd give this a 2. I don't think it's a 1 because I think the effect is super strong. But if it doesn't proc, then it's kind of useless at that point, I'd imagine. So I'll give it a 2. Because I don't think this is like the highest card. I think it's just a really annoying card, it probably seems, but I have no good idea like how good it is competitively.
That's fair.
All right, so that now that we've gone over all 13 cards here, we're going to reveal our own rankings and see how close that James got to how actually played these cards were. Starting off with Professor Oak, of course. This card was played in every single deck. This was a 5 out of 5. It wasn't necessarily run at 4 because despite the card advantage being fantastic, you could run out of resources really fast, and if you did that, you lost. Check out History of Pokemon TCG if you want to see that happen. So you would, if you activated multiple times in a turn, it would definitely creep up on you pretty quick, but it was still a fantastic card.
Yeah, so James said this one was a 5 out of 5, and he was right.
Yeah,
Yep.
just I guess Yu-Gi-Oh experience kind of helped with that.
Just card advantage. Having
Yeah.
a card advantage.
So Professor's research, despite having that once per turn, is still 5 out of 5. It is still played at 3 to 4 copies in every deck. There are other draw cards in the form of supporters like Marnie, where it shuffles your hand to the bottom of your deck and you draw 5 cards. But this is still like the best way of refreshing your hand, getting a hold of new resources, and just powering up your Pokemon in order to outspeed your opponent and take them down, take your prizes faster.
Oh, this
Yeah.
came out this year. That probably explains why I've never heard of it, because like I have not really been like too much on like online, I guess. So I like don't really hear about anything from TCG anymore. Oh, this also came out from looks like the 25th anniversary
Celebrations.
pack, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it was
I,
a spiritual reprint of this original Professor
Yeah,
Oak card.
makes sense. I didn't even know this is technically played yet, but yeah, that probably explains why. I'd never heard about this card, so I wasn't sure if it was like, oh, is it nerfed in some kind of fashion that I just don't know about? It's just like a trick,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's why.
Yeah, no, the only nerf was exactly what was written on the card. You can
Yeah,
only play
okay.
one supporter card during your turn.
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily a card that's broken, like that people think it like needs to be banned or anything, but
It's just a
insanely
really strong
good.
option, yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah, because we
exactly.
had similar cards like this. Professor Juniper back in Gen 5, discard your hand, draw
I
7.
remember.
Professor
I
Sycamore.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
we
is
had
this
we had
Sycamore I'm
cards
thinking
like
of?
all.
It might
Yeah,
have been Sycamore.
Professor Sycamore as
No,
well.
I'm thinking of like for the Lysander part. I don't remember.
We can get to that. We can get to that a little later.
We'll get
I
there. We'll
think.
get there, Lysander.
All right, so the third card here is Arceus Dialga Palkia GX. So you rated this card a Luke kept track of it. I didn't keep track of it.
I
I'm
think it was a
sorry.
1, right?
James ranked this card as a 1, and I had to stop myself so hard from laughing because
I
think-
actually did make a noise because I was just like,
I
"Are you
think
kidding me?"
I think James said that this card probably isn't broken because nobody complained about it, and I've been playing Pokemon cards since the cards came to North America, and I don't think anybody has ever complained more about a
More
card. There
about
were
cards than this,
there
yeah.
were petitions about this card. There were
This card should have been banned in standard, and that doesn't
People-
happen very often.
this
Is
card.
the card really?
This is
Yeah,
absolutely
simply-
ridiculous.
Simply because this was played in Zacian variants. Zacian is, of course, a metal type Pokemon, or steel in the games, and we had a card called Metal Saucer, which allows us to attach a metal energy to one of our metal Pokemon from the discard pile, disregarding the once per turn attachment rule. And then there was another card called Energy Switch, where you could just switch an attached energy to another card. So you would just throw the metal energy on a benched Zacian, activate Energy Switch, put it on ADP, attach a water energy, and you would use Altered Creation, which is your once per game GX attack, and that would automatically let you take one more prize on each knockout. So you only had to knock out like 3 single prizers or 2 regular GX Pokemon. So it sped up the game dramatically, and decks that just were not playing it were worse for it, and that's why Zacian ADP was the best deck in the format until this got rotated this past September, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
I guess
so
that kind of makes sense.
yeah, the alter creation making you take an extra prize basically made it. I knock out 2 Pokemon and I win the game, and like it made games literally end on turn 3.
Yeah, so yeah, decks like this deck could normally just go second, slap that move on, and your opponent's just like, well,
turn 1.
I'm out tempoed, so.
I guess that kind of makes sense. So I looked at this as like, I don't know anything about the meta. I didn't have any context. So I saw the 2019 and I wasn't sure, like, I know Sword and Shield came out late 2019, so I didn't know anything about like how the cards. I thought
this was from the set right before Sword and Shield, Cosmic Eclipse, Sun and Moon.
Okay, so I had like, I knew there was a card something complaint because I remember TCG writing, but I had like no idea it was this card because I never recognized it. So
yeah,
and with Zacian, like I know it's insane in VGC, so I guess in card game, it makes sense because I heard about Zacian as well in the card game, so I guess that technically makes sense. I don't think I would have guessed that without the context, I guess.
Yeah, maybe if I said this card's paired with Zacian, you would have been okay. Insta broken, hit the buzzer.
Yeah.
Okay, next we've got Tyranitar EX Delta Species from the Dragon Frontiers EX set. One of my all-time favorite sets ever from 2006. And James ranked this T-Tar as a 2, and he wasn't far off. We ranked it as a 1 just because I can't find any record of it being played in tournaments in America and Japan, even in retro formats when people go back, it's not really played. And James, you were onto it because you said that you weren't sure about the pace of like setting a marker and then later on knocking it out. So yeah, you were pretty spot on about why this card wasn't really played.
Yeah, because this would take a minimum of 4 turns if you were lucky to set up, because you'd have to put your Larvitar down. Next turn, you'd evolve it to Pupitar. Third turn, you'd evolve it to Tyranitar, and by that point, you've already got all 3 energy on it, but then you have to use Electromark, and then the 4th turn, Shockwave finally KOs something. So once it gets rolling, it's okay, but it was just not up to snuff for the rest of, compared to the rest of the decks in that format.
It kind of makes sense. I like never even seen this card before, so the effect just seemed like it didn't become a 1 for me, but it did seem like pretty hard to set up, so that's why I gave it a 2 just for the effects itself. So it kind of makes sense.
It's still cool though. It's a lightning type Tyranitar. Can't go wrong.
Yeah, it's a really cool card. Next, we've got Cleffa from Neo Genesis, the baby Pokemon that when it's hit, your opponent has to flip a coin, and if tails, they end their turn without attacking. And it can also shuffle your hand, draw 7. James rated this Cleffa as a 4. Myself and Sean decided on a 5. So, James, you weren't too far off, and you also noted, you know, like, wow, that effect is crazy.
Yeah, so there was a reason this was reprinted in Celebrations. It's because it's a staple 4 of in literally any Neo deck ever, and if you're not playing it, go buy yourself 4 Cleffas. Shuffling your hand and drawing 7, it has the added benefit of not getting rid of your resources like Professor Oakwood, and you can just continually shuffle your hand in if you need to start setting up other Pokemon. Like Riptide for Alligator, for instance, was one of the better decks of the format, and you were constantly trying to find your water energies to be able to just hit for massive amounts of damage at that point.
So wait, was I close again? I ranked this a 5, right?
Yeah, you
said it was
you
4.
said 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you ranked it a 4, and we said 5. So yeah, you were really close on this one.
It did seem pretty insane, especially with the extra effect. So
yeah, because you could shuffle your hand, draw cards, and then be like, okay, I'll flip a coin. If heads, I get to do it again next turn.
yeah, if you like lost those cards, maybe it'd be a different story. But shuffle them, yeah, like that seems pretty insane.
Yeah. Usually early prizes in Neo format were Cleffa before you started hitting with big stuff. So. All right, so Joltik, the Night March one from Phantom Forces, you rated this, I think. What was it, a 3?
I think it was a 3 or 2. It was definitely one of those.
You said high 3, low 4, and I gave you a 4. I put down 4 for you. Okay.
All right, well, we were being a little bit nice.
I think he put down 4. We can check the VODs for that. Yeah. But I put down 4 in my notes.
So this card is a 5. It was the best deck in the format back during XY onward era. Simply because there's a card called Battle Compressor, It is you activate it and you send 3 cards from your deck to the discard pile. So you could send your Lampents, your Pumpkaboos, and there was also another card called Double Colorless Energy that was legal, which allowed you to have basically 1 card acted as 2 energy, and you could just power up this 1 prize Pokemon in a single turn, just based on throwing 2 battle compressors and a DCE on there, and you were already doing 120 damage with a single prize Pokemon. In comparison, you were seeing EX Pokemon with 2 prizes running around the format, and you were just outpacing them because of that.
Okay, yeah. So the stack ended up like I thought the effect would stack up, but it seems like it was more than I anticipated. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you have a total of
really good. But like, yeah, so like you called it right that the effect was really good, stacking 20 damage for each one of these, or each one of the other Pokemon when they march as well that you get into the discard. It's just without the context of knowing that there's an item card that says search your deck for any 3 cards and throw them in, because you could get 3 battle compressors in your opening hand, send 9 Night Marchers to the discard, and you're swinging 180 turn 1 with this little 30 HP dude.
And not to mention, later on in Fates Collide, we had a Mew that was printed that could copy attacks from, I think, either player's bench. And
it was your essentially own bench, basically.
Your own bench, okay. Mm-hmm. So you would essentially have extra copies of Night Marchers. So you could get more into the discard pile and do more damage, which made it even crazier. So, all right, so the next card we have here is the Rayquaza VMAX. This was, of course, recently released. What did we see? What did you say it was? You said, I think, a 4 or 5.
James stated that it was a 5.
That was the wrong answer, buddy. This card has seen a little bit of competitive play, but nothing to really make waves. We rated it collectively, I think, a 2.
We did.
Yep.
So Rayquaza VMAX is interesting. Many notable content creators for the Pokemon TCG ranked this as the #1 card of the set prior to Evolving Skies release. I ranked it as the #2 card, only behind Umbreon VMAX. And the card in a vacuum, honestly, I would agree with your #5 in a vacuum, but in its own actual playability, the deck itself built around Rayquaza VMAX, it gets a placement in an online event here and there, but really nothing too crazy, and it's kind of seen as like almost like a meme deck. Like, why would you play Rayquaza VMAX? But like, its ability is Azure Pulse and Max Burst. Like, we set this one up for you to be like, oh yeah, he's going to give it a 5.
yeah, this was kind of well, we're gonna trick him into thinking this card is good when it's actually kind of booty. But
I mean, I don't know anything about Dynamax, so
yeah,
not really much to say there. I'm in Dynamax in the card game. I literally don't know how Dynamax in the card game works. So yeah, I mean, was there ever another Rayquaza that was decent? Because I feel like
there's been a lot of Rayquazas.
Yeah. So
No,
the most recent
really
one. Yeah, the most recent one you're probably thinking of is the colorless Mega Rayquaza from Roaring Skies, which came out XY era. So Roaring Skies, Evolving Skies, very similar names, probably tripped you up a little bit. But that one had there was a stadium called Skyfield, and it did damage based on did damage based on bench Pokemon. You'd have H benched, and you just slap them over and over again. So
yeah,
big dragon hit hard.
Yeah, so I mean, I know like there was one Rayquaza that was good. I just didn't know which one, so I assumed something like, maybe it's okay. This is the thing about TCG. This is why I like the video game. You have the base stats, and they're pretty much going to be the same no matter what, unless they somehow change it and buff it. But it's pretty much the same mon regardless.
Yeah, very different in the cards. Next, we've got Pidgeot from the Fire Red and Leaf Green expansion. Pidgeot with the quick search can fetch any card out of your hand from your deck into your hand, but you can only use one of these a turn. James, you rated Pidgeot as a 3. Sean and I decided on a 4 ourselves, just because we know, looking back, that this is included in a lot of decks as an engine to just go search out whatever card you need, and you were kind of onto that yourself.
Yeah, it wasn't just a combo piece for a certain deck. This was played in a lot of stuff that just needed to find specific cards as fast as possible. And I think Rare Candy was legal as well at this time, which Rare Candy would let you evolve a basic straight up into a stage 2. So Pidgeot could get out 1 turn earlier and start searching out those cards.
Okay, what's funny is actually I know Pidgeot was something used, but I thought that was like in a later series, so I wasn't sure like what this Pidgeot would do. The quick search seemed decent, so I felt like, this has to be probably a used card. I didn't have any combo context, so I don't know anything about this series, but like, yeah, I thought it was like decent, so I just wasn't sure like how good it was.
Yeah, for sure. Next, we've got Raichu level X. So Raichu level X was one that I was hoping to trip you up on this one too, since it can use an extra attack. I honestly tried to sell you a little bit. I was like, oh come on, James, it's like Mega Kangaskhan.
Yeah, it's like the
Mega
most
this
Kangaskhan
is nowhere
in the game.
This is nowhere near a Mega Kangaskhan level. I know
The
that
Mega
first.
Kangaskhan's broken. So you called it a 2, and we also called it a 2. So you actually were right on the money with this one. It saw some fringe play, and it sees some fringe play looking back, but it's still a rogue deck nonetheless. It has some things you could do with it, but it's just above being unplayable.
Yeah, the fact that you had to both pay the energy cost for Voltage Shoot and then discard from your hand made it just unpractical. Like, you would think, oh, being able to attack twice with Voltage Shoot to snipe something off the bench, because 160 damage, a crap ton of damage back then.
I just didn't think it was realistic for this setup. Like,
yeah, it wasn't. And the fact that you didn't even have Devolution Spray to continuously do it, which basically Devolution Spray was an older card that you would slap it down, and it would let you pick up the highest evolution off of one of your Pokemon, and put it back into your hand. So you could have, like, if that card was legal, it might have made this a little bit more playable, but alas.
so why did you guys give it a 2 instead of a 1? Is it just because like the combo is technically good in theory if you can get it off, or like?
We gave it 2 because it was played a bit as a rogue deck.
Okay.
And
Yeah, it was fringe
looking
playable.
Yeah, and like when people go back to play Diamond and Pearl Block or 2010, there are people that still do build this deck just because they like it and it's a deck that can function. Kind of like the same reason we gave Rayquaza VMAX a 2 and not a 1. It's a deck that can function and people do play it. It's just it's right above don't play this ever, and like, oh, you can play it if you like the card, but it's still not great.
Yeah. So the next card, of course, is Lysander's Trump card. Each player shuffles all cards in their discard pile into his or her deck. You rated this card, I think, a 5, but the reasoning behind it was completely wrong because you were mixing it up with another card just called Lysander.
Okay.
Lysander would let you let you take one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and put it into the active spot. That card, of course, is broken and was reprinted as Boss's Orders today. But this card was actually banned because of the application of being able to essentially reset the entire game state and deny your opponent discard resources. This was basically a counter to Night March, and once they banned it, this is why Night March kind of exploded in popularity, because there was no counter to get them out of the discard pile until a card called Karen that was printed, which shuffled just Pokemon back in, but it was too late by that point.
So this card was absolutely disgusting.
What did you guys rate this? You didn't say.
5. It's a 5.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, so you got it right.
Yeah, that's why I said that you did it for the completely different reason.
I mean, at least the effect does make sense. It does seem like absolutely insane. It did look like a momentum shifter, so.
Yeah. What it was played in a Seismitoad EX deck where you would use Seismitoad's attack, which for DCE attachment, so 1 energy attachment, Quaking Punch 30, and your opponent can't play items next turn. But you would also play Enhanced Hammers and Crushing Hammers and a bunch of removal that just discards your opponent's energies. So you would play all your hammers and your other hammers and your whatever else, your lasers to make them poisoned and asleep. And then when you were all out of them, you would Lysander trump card them all into your deck and do it all over again until your little chip damage finally won the game.
Yeah, I forgot that Enhanced Hammer was legal at this time.
Oh, yeah.
It was just 4 more copies of Crushing Hammer.
Yeah, and your opponent couldn't Enhanced Hammer you because you were saying no items every turn.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was a disgusting combo, and it was one of the few standard cards that just got banned, so.
Yeah.
And it's still banned and expanded, so.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the 10th card on our list is, I think this is the 10th card. I can't, my brain no work. Claydol, Stage 1. So the your rating was relatively low, I think, for
A
this.
2.
It was a 2. I think we rated this a 4 or 5?
5.
A 5. So this was a big staple during the Diamond and Pearl format. You would just basically keep one of these on your bench and being able to just once per turn cycle out 2 of your bad cards out of your hand and draw some more resources to be able to keep charging up your guys on your bench and your active. It's just a pace accelerator, and the more tempo you have over your opponent, the faster it is going to steamroll and take all 6 prizes.
Yeah, it's kind of like a staple, like building a new deck. All right, we'll slap a 2/2 line of Claydol in. To give it perspective, this is my favorite format, is the Diamond and Pearl era, so I have a collection of decks built that I'm still working on, and I probably own about 30 copies of this Claydol for that collection of decks. So it's in just about literally every deck of that era, just because it's consistency. You know, it only has to evolve once. You get to put cards you don't need now for later on the bottom and draw a few more cards.
Yep, and again, there's a reason it was reprinted in Celebrations.
Yep, this is another Celebrations one.
Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. I guess maybe I should have probably ranked this a 3 at the minimum. I ranked it 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking back at it, I'm reading the effect again, and maybe I think I misread it about the 6, but yeah, that does seem pretty good. Although I had no context of like what do you exactly use it for. So yeah, all right.
Yeah, to give you a little more context of the time, because I don't think you're the only one that looked at this for the first time and didn't see anything but an okay draw power. When Great Encounters released, this was listed for like a 50-cent rare across all of like the singles sites. Like I guess back then it was like Ideal 808, Collector's Cache, things like that. It was like a 50-cent card, and then they all sold out, and it was like a $20 to $25 card per copy, because every deck was playing like somewhere between a 1/1 to a 3/3 line of Claydol.
Also, can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Why does cards use like the fighting symbol for both fighting and ground? I never understood that.
So there's only like what 9 types in the card game, so they combine things.
Yeah, they combined things because having 17 different types of mana would be way too much and make the game unbalanced.
Oh, you mean for like energies and stuff?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's
so
why the fighting type consists of fighting, rock, and ground.
So they just fuse the types basically, so it's easier for energy. Okay.
Like water is water and ice. Dark is dark and poison right now. Poison's been a lot of different types. Don't get me started.
Yeah, poison's been around the block.
It always seemed weird to me. I'm like, wait, why the heck is this a water type? Why is this a fighting type? Stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that actually makes a lot more sense now that I think about it.
Yeah, like they tried introducing fairies during Gen 6, but scrapped them after Gen 7 because they're like, wow, this was too many mana types. So
yeah. All right, we're moving on to number 11, Mega Charizard EX. We chose the secret rare variant here, just make it a little look a little flashier from the Flashfire set. Mega Charizard EX, you mentioned, James, you don't know which Charizards are good and which Charizards are just expensive. Well, this one is one of those expensive ones and not one of those good ones. You rated it a 3 because you weren't too sure. We gave it a 1 because it saw negative play.
yeah, this card blows.
Dang, I was like, okay, this could be good or this could be bad. If I had to bet one of them, if like you told me you have to bet, I'd probably say it had been 1. I'm glad I was like on the money on that part. But like,
yeah. So I was actually trying to trick you here because I mentioned the Charizard Spirit Link, which doesn't end your turn when you make it evolve. This card was printed in 2014, but the Spirit Link didn't come out until about 2016 in XY Evolutions, the last set of the block before Sun and Moon. So it was never played.
I could imagine. I'm pretty sure I saw this sold at like 50 cents on like a card shop back when I was like at the card shops at Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm pretty sure I was like,
God, I would have picked this up for 50 cents. Jeez.
I was like, if this is played, this is probably more expensive, but it looked a bit different from what I remember. So, yeah.
Yeah.
There were 2 of them in this set.
Okay. Yeah, there was a less cool looking one. Okay, and lastly, we've got Slowking from Neo Genesis. James, we tried to talk you into this one.
I felt like Okay, so I gave it what, like a 2?
A 2.
And what did you guys give?
We put it down as a 5 with an asterisk and 2 question marks and an exclamation mark.
Yeah,
Huh?
so yeah, this card is extremely weird. So this was mistranslated from the Japanese version. Mind Games was originally only supposed to work while Slowking was in the active. They mistranslated it and made it so that it worked on your bench as well, so you could stack more than one, which is why I explained that you could stack more than one. It made it way too good. People would run this card and just lock their opponent out of the deck, and they would just steamroll and win. And eventually, it became banned. I think they errated it in Japan. Well, not errated it, but they printed it correctly in Japan, but they banned it here because they don't errata cards in the
Yeah, this was
US
one of the first banned cards.
Yep. So it was broken.
Yeah, so if it read the way it was supposed to and said, "Well, this is in the active," then this would have been like probably a niche, annoying deck at best. Like James actually said, this card seems annoying, but I don't know if it's any better. But since it worked in the active and the bench, and you could use other things as your attackers and just sit back, and your opponent statistically won't get to play more than 3 out of 4 of their trainers. If you have a board full of Slow Kings, then it was just completely degenerate. And,
Yeah, this looked, the wording was so confusing. I feel like when I read it, and I'm like, I feel like that this is like a meme card. That's what it seemed like to me.
It would
seemed
have
like
been if it was translated correctly.
Yeah.
Oh
okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Because we've seen cards like this today. Like there's one that says if it's in the active, whenever your opponent tries to attach an energy, flip a coin. If tails, they don't attach that energy. But that card's like not even remotely considered to be a card, just because it has to be in the active.
Yeah, this reminds me of freaking GMX Smite Hatterene. I don't know if you ever played against that in a video game, but like it double confuses you with a 130 base power move. It confuses both of your Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's a really dumb effect. That kind of is basically my equivalent to this. It could be good, but it seems more like a meme.
Yeah. All right, so in total, James, you got 3 out of 13 correct, right on the money. You were close with some of them, like you gave some like 4s that would have been 5s from us. So you did relatively well for just how little experience you have in this game. But it just tells you there's more than meets the eye with single cards. Usually everything pairs with another to make a cohesive deck, and it's not all just about slap one card down and win the game. So.
I mean, yeah, you could say that about competitive video game in the competitive video game too. Like you probably think I'm crazy. Like I would tell you, like, you know, Clefairy was a really good Pokemon in competitive, and some of you would look at stats and not believe me. But yeah, it has a pretty good role. So it's not everything is about the Pokemon itself or the card itself. It's about what it can synergize with.
Yep. Except ADP, just slap that down, you win the game.
Oh yeah. There were just some tier 0 formats that you couldn't really get around it, and some staples that are just like, oh, put this in your deck. Like Shaman EX comes to mind, Tapu Lele GX, several other cards that were just, you put it in your deck and you win. But yeah, so but those were few and far between.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to Beastcoast Pokemon, and also check out all of our individual channels. They'll probably be in the description down below. I'm Luke, and with me today were Sean and James, and this video was a blast. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let us know what your favorite moment of this video was down in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time here on Beastcoast Pokemon.